The Savior of Cycerin, written by Mars and voiced by Makeshift. Shun stood at the entrance of the orphanage, staring at the doorknob. The past few weeks had been a turning point for her, finding a purpose and regaining a newfound taste for life. She never thought that she would be in her own body again, but here she was, in the flesh, no longer metal. She could breathe again, taste, sleep, and cry. It was almost overwhelming for her, but she found solace in her task, reuniting her people and ridding the world of whatever was causing the human trafficking. She reached for the doorknob with a gloved hand and slowly opened the door. Immediately upon opening the door, all of the children turned and stared at her, awestruck. Haltingly, a female drow in her mid-20s came from the crowd of children and approached Shun. "Shun, is that you?" The younger woman cautiously approached her, keeping her guard up. "Yeah, it's me. I'm back." Shun sighed and sat down on a nearby chair, laying her rifle across her lap. "But how? How did you get your body back? You're no longer—" She paused for a second, biting her nails. "Metal." "Yeah. Thank you for noticing, Tirana. I was offered my body back in exchange for my services." Shun glanced around the room. "Is there any water I may have? I haven't had any to drink in a while." "Huh? Oh, right. I'll get you some." She quickly scurried off and brought back a glass of water, which Shun promptly guzzled down. "So, are you telling me that you, of all people, made a deal with a god?" Not exactly a god. I think you'd just be confused if I told you what she was. To be honest, it's quite confusing to me, so I try not to think about it. You're okay though, right? What did you have to kill, if I can ask that? Before Shun could answer, a child ran up to her with another glass of water, which she once again consumed in a rapid fashion. "Thank you, sweetie." The child smiled and ran back to the other children to continue playing with their dice. "The goddess of rot, I think." "Well, first it was the goddess of rot, and then it was the primordial of decay. It was... I don't want to do that again. I absorbed some of her energy when she became a sentient plague, and it did not feel good at all." Tirana smiled slightly and placed her hand on Shun's shoulder. "Shun, I must ask this. Are we to return to Cycerin soon? The children long for home, and I don't know what to tell them." Shun looked at Tirana's eyes, her own eyes glowing a bright red. "Soon, I have to find the rest of our people and put a stop to the god that is doing this." Tirana bit her bottom lip slightly and sighed. "Shun, Are you sure it's a god that's doing this?" Shun raised an eyebrow slightly. "What else could it be, Tirana? Are you suggesting that they would do this without the intervention of a god? Why would they do that? People are just... They have a lot of reasons for doing stuff, mostly money. The universe is a harsh place, Shun. People do a lot of awful things to each other." Shun laughed slightly and stared down at the floor. "I don't want to believe that mortals could do that to each other out of their own free will." Tirana gave a slight smile. "Yeah. You look pretty tired. Do you want to sleep here before you go out and do whatever it is you need to do?" Shun gave a slight nod and stood up, swinging her rifle back over her shoulder. "That would probably be for the best. Third door on the left. Do you want me to lead you there?" "No, I'll be fine. Thank you, Tirana." Tirana gave a slight nod as Shun made her way to her room. Deep down, Shun knew there was no god involved in this, but she wanted to believe there was. She could not bring herself to accept the reality that the universe was corrupt. Reaching down, she opened the door with a creak and set down her rifle against the wall. Turning around, she took a moment and stared at the bed, still comprehending that she was once again alive. Lying down in bed, she sighed as all the sensations filled her. The softness of the sheets, the comfort of the mattress, the smell of freshly washed linen. It had been so long since she felt these sensations. Her eyes closed as she drifted to restful sleep. As Shun opened her eyes, she realized she was no longer in the bedroom. There was a blinding light and feathers all around her. Shun trembled in fear, mumbling in complete disbelief. No, 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 no. This isn't real. This isn't real. Shun reached for her waist, but realized she didn't have her revolver. Shun, look at yourself. You're pathetic. Shun looked up to see Fate staring over her. No, you're dead. You can't be here. You are dead. Shun jumped backward, getting ready to fight, even if she didn't have her firearms. Am I? I am in you. You absorbed my energy, Shun. Through you, I live. You can run, flee, hide from the truth. But we are inseparable, miserable girl. There is nothing you can do about it. Fate let out a bellowing laugh as he loomed over Shun. I will rip you from me, you bastard. I will make sure there's nothing left of you. Oh, Shun. But I've come to you to grant you a gift. A generational gift passed down from father to daughter. You are not my father. You are a monster. Oh, but I am. I made you who you are, Shun. You wouldn't be who you are without me. I am your progenitor. Shun grit her teeth, staring back at her monster. What is it that you want from me? Spit it out so I can get rid of you forever. You fucking coward. You ruined my life. Ruined thousands of lives over a fucking prophecy. And look where that got you. You're still dead, and you have nobody to mourn you. Fate let out another laugh as Shun seethed. Oh, Shun, the mountains would crumble and the oceans drain before you could ever kill me. You and I both know that prophecy was nonsense. This was your fate, Shun. I changed nothing. But yada yada yada, off with their head. Kill the king. Shun's anger was boiling over, leaving her longing to strike Fate. What is it that you want? As I was saying, I give you the gift passed down from generation to generation. I give to you the gift of guilt. Shun stared at Fate, confused. The gift of guilt. Have you lost your mind? What guilt would I have from you? Fate smiled widely at Shun. This is your gift, Shun. You must bear the weight of my guilt. That is my gift to you. Before Shun could say or do anything, Fate appeared in front of her and grasped her face. Shun could see scenes of chaos, the things she had done, and all the guilt of Fate. Last, she saw Uriel on the boat, exploding the boat, and the bodies of the children in the water. Shun woke up in a cold sweat. the sheets on her bed soaked. She put her hands to her face, her cheeks wet from tears. She stood up slowly, sliding her revolver into their holsters and slinging her rifle over her shoulder. Shun glanced at her watch. 1:45. The tavern was guaranteed to have all sorts of shady figures there at this time of night. It was time to confront the god responsible for all of this. She carefully opened the bedroom door, making sure not to disturb anyone. As she crept through the hallway, she saw a flickering light from a room she remembered to be Tiariana's. She slowly walked past the room, but then stopped and turned back toward it, contemplating speaking to her. She approached the room and inhaled deeply before rapping lightly on the door. Summoned forth with a gentle, "Come in." Shun cracked open the door, jolting to a halt when the door creaked slightly, and then cautiously opening it further, having accepted that the old hinges would not cooperate without complaint. "Oh, Shun, you haven't slept long. Only about 5 hours or so, if I'm correct." Shun slowly entered the room fully, leaning her rifle next to the door and taking a chair across from Tirana. "You are correct. I just had a nightmare and I had to get going anyways." Shun had a look of contemplation, and her eyes were deep red from crying. "Shun, I know this isn't my place, but are you sure you're okay? You look like you've been crying, and I just want you to know that we all care about you. You've done so much for us already." Tirana gave a slight smile and put her hand on Shun's shoulder. "Just know that you can always talk to me. We're your family, Shun." Shun shut her eyes and exhaled. I feel responsible. I don't know. I had this dream about guilt and I saw fate. And I felt that I just couldn't take it anymore. Responsible for what, Shun? You've been doing the best you can. The kids, I didn't save them all. There's so many things I could have done differently. I could have stopped him from blowing up the ship. I could have gotten everyone out of there okay. Shun put her hands on her face as she softly cried. Tirana embraced Shun, giving her a tight hug. "Shun, listen to me. You are not responsible for what that monster did. You are only one person, and you cannot be everywhere at once. You did the best thing you could have possibly done. You stopped that man from killing me, and you saved everyone you could. You were a hero to us, Shun. If it wasn't for you, none of us would be here right now, and that is a fact." Shun stood up and grabbed her rifle. "I will return, and when I get back, we're going home." When Shun quietly swung the door open again, standing in front of her was a small drow girl. "Miss Shun, where are you going?" The child rocked back and forth on her tippy toes. "I'm going to save some more children, like you. Shouldn't you be in bed right now?" Shun patted her on the head slightly. "Well, yeah, but I heard you and I wanted to see you before you go. You're gonna go fight the bad guys. That's so cool." "Oh, I'm sorry, sweetie. Did I wake you?" "Nah, I was already awake." Horton snores loudly. I want to shove a roll in his mouth, but Anna said that was a bad idea. Shun gave a slight laugh. "You really should go to bed, sweetie. We have a long journey ahead of us soon." The child briefly embraced Shun, then tiptoed away. As Shun slowly crept through the orphanage, she could hear the murmurs of the children, which faded as she got closer. Shun approached the main entrance, turned back towards the children in their cots, and murmured, "I'll be back, children. I promise." She slowly turned the knob and exited the orphanage into the night air. of Mortel Bay. Stepping into the bleak and dreary urban scape of Mortel Bay, the stink of rotten decay hit Shun's nose immediately, reminding her of her past journey the previous days. Did she make a mistake with that as well? Letting the young man sacrifice himself? Was that really the only way to protect the world? Shun pondered this as she strolled down the trash-filled paths towards the tavern she had heard rumors of. Hopefully tonight she would get answers. She would seek vengeance for those 8 children. As she passed the docks, the sound of a foghorn could be heard, along with some lights in the distance, as a ship approached. Soon enough, she could hear the boisterous calls of the sailors on the ship. "All right, men. You lot have 2 hours before we collect the cargo and leave the Federation to make our deadline. Go have some fun." The men cheered as the captain dismissed them, and the men disembarked from the boat, making a beeline for the nearby tavern. Shun approached the boat, hailing the captain. "You all traders. What are you exporting?" Shun questioned the man. The man scowled and took out a cigar, lighting it. Taking a puff, then blowing the smoke in Shun's direction. "What's it do you? What do you need to know?" The man gave her a slight smile as he took another deep breath from his cigar. Shun reached into her coat pocket, the captain eyeing her suspiciously as she pulled out the badge of a Gilded Eye member. "Ah, I see. If you're insinuating that I'm transporting something illegal, I'm not." The man coughed slightly before releasing a large cloud of cigar smoke. "Feel free to search my vessel. I have nothing to hide. I'm an honorable man." A halfling walked up to the side of the captain, standing at about the captain's waist. He had a patchy beard and red, balding hair. "What's this dirty drow want, Capt?" The captain elbowed the halfling in the arm. The man grunted in pain. "This young lady is a member of the Gilded Eye, and I was just explaining to her that we are honorable merchants and don't dabble in any illegal activities." The captain was clearly angered by the subordinate's sudden interjection. "Oh, wow. The Gilded Eye must clearly be running out of recruits, since they were caught trafficking slaves. Who would have thought that they have gone to the bottom of the barrel?" The man spit on the ground to indicate his evident disgust. The captain turned to the man with a look of pure rage. "Langston, get out of here before I have you scrubbing the fucking toilets for a week. You hear me?" The man grumbled before going back below the deck. "Sorry about that, ma'am. Some of my crew haven't had the best experiences with the drows." Shun nodded slightly, looking quite perturbed. "So, you know nothing about human trafficking, then?" The captain shook his head profusely. "And if I found out that any of my men were involved with it, I would promptly turn them over to the authorities. As I said, I'm a trader with honor. I pride myself on that." "I see. Well, thank you. Have a good night." The captain tipped his head as Shun turned around and walked onward. As the tavern came to view, hoots and hollers from miscreants could be heard, and the smell of the heavy alcohol hit Shun's nose, causing her to grimace slightly. As Shun opened the door to the tavern, a glass flew past her head, smashing against a fence post behind her. "I said, light foam, you fucking tiefling scum." A man, who Shun recognized as being a crew member from the boat, was berating a tiefling bartender. A clear target of the now shattered glass. As the tiefling cowered in the corner, Shun stepped up. "Get out of here, hon. I'll deal with him." Shun ushered her away. "Oh yeah, sure you are. The fuck are you going to do about it?" The man exaggerated his words, leaning in close to Shun and making sure every syllable sent spit into her face. "You drow piece of shit." All the man's friends around her broke out into a laughter as Shun quickly unsheathed her revolver pressing it against the man's stomach. And what the fuck is that supposed to be? Some magic weapon? As the man continued to laugh, his friends grew silent. One of the friends leaned into the man, looking very nervous. Jameson, I think that's the weapon we've been hearing rumors about. Remember that story of the guy that got his head turned to mist? The man stumbled backwards as Shun spun around the revolver and reholstered it with a practiced hand. We're not going to have any more issues, are we, Jameson? Shun grinned slightly at the man. No issues. Jameson's friends responded for him. Good. Shun turned away from the group, sitting in a booth in the back corner. Slowly, the tiefling bartender walked over to Shun's booth. Can I get you anything? The tiefling stumbled a bit, clearly a bit nervous. No, I'm all right. Sit down for a bit. I need some answers from you. The tiefling looked wide-eyed at Shun and hesitated for a moment before sitting down across from her. So, how often do they come here? The tiefling glanced behind her for a second, looking towards the group of men who had quickly re-immersed themselves in drinking and goofing off. Well, every time they come into port, they come in for a drink. The woman was clearly nervous, glancing over towards the men every once in a while. What's your name? Shun asked her, trying to pull her attention off the men. My name? It's Vivi. Okay, Vivi. I need you to tell me this. Have they ever come in here talking about anything illegal? Human trafficking? Vivi looked at her, trembling slightly. Shun reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the badge. You can trust me. I don't want anyone to get hurt. I don't know, ma'am. She once again glanced over towards the men. My name is Shun. You can trust me. I won't let them hurt you. I promise. The woman bit her lip before turning back to Shun. Last time they were here, the one you got into an altercation with, Jameson, came in with 3 young drow women and got into an argument with his friends over it. One of them said that the captain would kill them if they found out they were smuggling slaves on the boat, but Jameson said he had a spot to hide them on the boat. He threatened to kidnap me too if I ever told anyone. Shun leaned back and sighed, glancing over at the men. When she glanced over at the men, she could tell they were looking back. Soon enough, Jameson, with 2 other men, came walking over. Oi, tiefling. You been talking to the drow, The men chuckled slightly. No, sir, I haven't. I said anything. Vivi shrunk down into her seat, looking away from the men. Shun chuckled slightly, grinning at Jameson. So, Jameson, you want to show me where you keep the kids? Jameson's eyes immediately widened and a scowl formed on his face as he drew a dagger. Before he could even move muscle, Shun drew a revolver and fired, putting a bullet right through the hand wielding the dagger. The blade and a lot of blood and matter flew out as Jameson screamed in pain. What the fuck, my hand? My fucking hand! He continued to scream as blood gushed from his hand, his 2 buddies backing away. All right, Shun began to speak. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me where you're transporting slaves to, and where this all originates. Then, you're going to pay Vivi a nice tip, and we're going back to the boat, so you can show me where you keep the kids. I ain't telling you shit, Jameson spat at Shun. Shun grinned and pressed the revolver against his head, cocking back the hammer. Jameson backed away, eventually left with nowhere to go, and against the wall. Shun, not letting up, had the revolver still pressed firmly against his head. Okay, I'll tell you. Where are you taking the kids to? Shun growled at the man. The Federation. There's a guy there. We just take the kids to him and he pays up. Shun got closer to the man, her eyes glowing even brighter. Who? Do they have a fucking name? Where in the Federation? He called himself the Slave Master. He has a compound with the docks. That's all I know, I swear. He had people meet us at the docks, and we'd sneak the kids out to them. Good. Now cough up some gold and an apology to the nice woman. Jameson grit his teeth, took some gold out of his pouch and tossed it to the tiefling. Sorry. The other two men looked back and forth at each other and also gave the woman some gold from their pouch. Shun set a pouch of gold on the table for the woman. All right, looks like we're paying a visit to your ship. She glanced at the two other men. You two are coming as well. You're not getting out of this. Shun grabbed Jameson's shoulder, pushing him towards the tavern door. The gold muzzle of her revolver pressed against his back. Walk. Let's go. Slowly, Jameson walked out of the tavern and towards the boat, as Shun trailed close behind, unspoken threat in hand to keep him on track. The other two men followed behind, smart enough not to try anything with Shun. As Shun approached the boat with the men, the captain saw them at a distance.
Jameson, Saul, Lingham. What's the meaning of this? What the fuck happened to your hands, Jameson?
The captain hopped off the boat and approached them.
Ma'am, what is the meaning of this?
I gathered information that this man, along with these two others, have been using your boat to traffic children. Disbelieving, the captain openly stared at his men in shock.
These three. They've worked with me for 5 years now, are you sure?
The captain was clearly upset by these allegations. Why don't we let them show you themselves, Captain? Mind if I board your vessel?
Not at all.
The captain stepped aside, letting Jameson and Shun pass, the revolver still against his back. All right. Where did you put the kids, Jameson? Jameson growled, and the group went to the bottom deck. Jameson approached the back of the ship and grabbed a nearby crowbar, pressing it against the boards of the wall and popping off a board. Shun and the captain approached and looked into the hole. Inside were 5 drow children, no older than 12. The captain whirled around in a fury, grabbing Jameson and slamming him against the wall.
I fucking trusted you, Jameson. I treat you like a son, and you go off and do this behind my back. Why the fuck would you do this? After all I've given you.
The captain threw Jameson to the ground, disgusted with him.
Do what you need to do, ma'am. All of them are fired.
With that, the captain left them. Shun reached out a hand to the kids, helping them out of the hideaway. Kids, there's an orphanage not too far from here. Just take a left on the street. When you get there, tell them that Shun sent you. I'll be there soon. The kids murmured to each other and then left the 4 of them there. So, you two? How are you involved in this? A shorter man came forward, the one the captain called Saul.
We didn't know about it until the night Jameson brought the kids into the bar. He just paid us to keep mum. I accept any punishment towards me, and I apologize for my actions.
The other man nodded while Jameson, still on the ground and bleeding from his hand, laughed.
You're all just as bad as me, you greedy fucks. Don't act all high and mighty. We were doing the world a service.
Shun looked at the man with pity. He was clearly under the influence of whatever god was causing this mess. Shun let out a sigh. You two, get out of here. If you ever do this again, I'll find you and make you wish that you had died here. The men quickly ran out of the boat while Jameson stayed on the floor, cradling his hand in pain.
So, what are you gonna do to me, huh? Kill me?
I'm going to put you out of your misery. You're beyond saving. As Jameson was laughing, Shun grabbed his arm, dragging him up the stairs of the boat. Jameson laughed the entire time. Upon reaching the upper deck, she leaned him over the railing, the man still laughing profusely. Just get it over with already. You're taking fucking forever. I'm sorry that it came to this. Sean pressed the revolver into his head, looking into the eyes of a man who did not care at all what happened to him. Jameson just smiled at her as she pulled the trigger, his body going slack and falling into the water below. The captain walked up beside Shun, watching the corpse slipping out of sight and into the water below. You're not with the Gilded Eye, are you? What's in this for you? Shun looked over the captain. Somebody has to. They're my people. I need to get to the Federation. I suppose you can tag along there. My ship is 3 men lighter now. What's your name, if I can ask that? Shun. Shun. Interesting name. Feel like I've heard that name before. My name's Captain Halfield, but you can call me Elrind. Thank you, Elrind. May our journey to the Federation be safe. He let out a light chuckle. I sure hope so. I have a feeling a lot of the men aren't going to like the news I have to tell them. He sighed and then gestured at a bench. Have a seat. The men should be back soon. This should be interesting. Shun sat down on the bench, looking out towards the ocean. So the Federation is where this all was originating from. It made some sense, but she could not remember if there were any gods present there. This puzzle played itself in her head over and over. What god could be unleashing this plague onto the mortals? It was a puzzle that she hoped would end soon. A few minutes passed, and she soon heard the boisterous yells and offbeat footsteps of the crew coming out from their various taverns. The crew began boarding, some glancing over at Shun and whispering to the fellow crewmates. The halfling who had been speaking to Captain Halfield, Langston, did not look pleased to see her there whatsoever, and was making quite a commotion. All right, crew, settle down. There's been an incident. Listen to these words carefully. This is a completely legal operation. Anyone trying to traffic slaves will be turned over to the authorities or thrown overboard. I will not be backstabbed nor used by you lot. You make good money here. You've no need to turn to this scumbaggery. We're setting sail for the Federation. Get to your stations. Before the men could completely disappear, the halfling came forward. Captain, what is this? This thing doing here? You expect us to just accept it on board? Do you now remember what happened to us up north? The captain spun around to face the man. Yes, I do expect you to accept her, and if you have any issues with that, you can leave. What happened up north was an accident, cultural differences. Do I have to remind you that there are people from this kingdom that actively kidnap the drow? You're dismissed. Langston grumbled and stomped off while the captain went back to his duties. Shun was pondering what they were referring to. The furthest kingdom north that she knew of was Voirin, and surely there wasn't a large drow population there. Shun's curiosity could no longer be contained, and she approached the captain. Elrind, if I may ask, what country in the north did you go to, and what happened? The captain turned to face her. So I assumed correct. You're not from there. It's quite a distance away, beyond where the ice in the sea starts forming. Not a lot of traders or adventurers have been there. The only people that ever go there are slavers. It was an exploratory mission. We didn't expect to find anything, but we stumbled upon this large kingdom filled with drow. We landed at the port and were immediately approached by some guards. They spoke broken common, but we were able to explain
that we were just traders and explorers and came in peace. I met with the local leader, and he explained that the village had been recently looted by slavers who took many of the children with them. After talking for a while, I stupidly presented him with a gift, an obsidian knife from the old Voirin and Silinor's wars. It was old, so of course it was dulled. Now, I know that this is a sign of... Now I know that this was a sign of utter disrespect, that not only would they take the obsidian knife as a sign of violence, but as us calling them weak. Before I knew it, nearly all of the men accompanying me were dead, and I barely escaped with my life. It wasn't their fault. I didn't know their customs or that they would take such a thing as a threat.
Shun sighed. I had no idea there was a Drow kingdom in this world. I understand how you didn't understand the customs and why they were hostile. We are considered outsiders in this world, so it is unusual to hear of places where we are not. Did you happen to catch the name of the kingdom or the town?
I believe the kingdom was called Viseri, and the town was Gnosha, or something. Didn't get to talk much, sadly. The captain shrugged.
Named after the first Drow justice. Quite interesting. I wonder how they got to this world.
Beats me. I just wish they could get along. Anyways, I'm off to get some sleep. There's a guest quarters on the second deck. I suppose you should take those. The door locks.
Shun was slightly alarmed by the last statement. I will do that. Thank you. The captain nodded and walked into his quarters. Shun looked towards the men who were staring daggers into her and quickly walked to the second floor, sliding into the guest quarters and locking the door. Shun decided against disarming, keeping her revolvers in their holsters, only leaning the rifle against the bed. Shun laid down, finding it hard to sleep. The memory of her nightmare with fate continued to haunt her. The only thing keeping her from trembling was the thought of her mission. The kids at the orphanage. After a while, she was able to fall asleep. It wasn't 40 minutes later when Shun was jolted awake by the sound of fighting. As soon as she woke up, she felt something against her throat. Her eyes adjusted, and she could see the halfling wielding a dagger. Good. The scum's awake. This is for my friends, you fucking drow. Before he could finish his sentence, Shun kicked him off, sending him flying into the wall. She rolled out of the bed, drew a revolver, and fanned the hammer, shooting him 3 times dead center of the forehead. The halfling slumped over, blood dripping down his face, dead. Shun grabbed her rifle, seeing that the door was unlocked. Damn lockpicks, she thought, kicking down the door of her room and dodging out of it. 2 men flanked the sides of her door. As she dodged, she shot the man on the left. Before the one on the right could respond, she spun around and unloaded the rest in his chest. An arrow flew past Shun's head as she dropped to the floor, pulling out her rifle and shooting the archer in the throat. Shun reloaded her revolver, thoughts rolling through her head. Where was the captain? Was he dead? Was this a mutiny? She slowly walked up the stairs before a loud thud was heard and the captain fell down the stairs, dead. An axe in his chest. Shun ascended onto the main deck, seeing many of the crew tied up with several other men standing at the helm, laughing to each other. That old man thinks he can be the moral compass around here, preventing us from making money. Then he goes and invites a drow on board. No longer. This is our ship now. And all of yous? The man now wearing the captain's coat points a sword towards the tied-up crew. You can all walk the plank, if you have anything to say about that. As Shun approached closer, she could see the man who had spoke was Langham, one of the men who she let go. Shun walked up closer and drew a revolver, pointing it directly at him. You.
How are you alive?
You really should choose better people next time. I can't believe this. I told you to scram and you do this? Is there a point to this, Langham? You killed your captain, a man who treated you like family, and for what?
Money, power, anything I want. Langham laughed, and the men behind him followed suit.
Money? Money. It's always the fucking money. You miserable. Shun shot Langham in the hand, causing him to scream and the men behind him to step away. Remember how I said I would make you wish I killed you then? That would have been a lot better for you, Langham. Shun grabbed a rope, stepping up to the man and kicking him over. She put her foot on his shoulder, eliciting a scream from him. Grabbing his hand, she shoved one end of the rope into it, pulling the slack through, causing the man to scream more in pain.
What the fuck are you doing?
What a perfect fit, isn't it, Langham? I'm teaching you all what happens when you don't listen to me while I'm being nice. Shun tied the rope to the side of the boat, going back over to the man and dragging him up by the neck.
Please, don't do this. Please give me mercy. Just come be quick, please.
Did you give the captain mercy? Did you give those kids mercy? I don't think so. With that, Shun tossed the man overboard, his body being dragged behind the ship by his hand as he struggled to stay afloat. Do I make myself clear when I say if anyone decides to traffic people again, they will end up like Langham here? The men all nodded profusely. Good. Now, untie the rest and get us to the Federation. As the men went back to business like nothing had ever happened, Shun went over to the captain's body. Silently, she picked up his body and carried it to his quarters. She laid the body on the bed and gingerly removed the axe. Looking around the room, she saw a framed picture, hand-drawn by a child from the looks of it. It had the look of a family portrait, father, mother, and 2 kids. Damn, he had a family, she murmured, taking another coat he had from his closet and dressing him in it. Carefully, she wrapped a sheet around him, picking up the body, and carried him outside. Some crew had gathered around, understanding what she was doing. Carrying the captain over to the side of the boat, she gently cast him into the sea. Final words. I did not know you very long, only this very short time, but from what I saw, you were a great man. I will find your family and let them know what happened. The men just stood there silently, and the captain sunk into the ocean and out of view. Shun sat down on the bench she had before, staring out into the ocean as the sun rose. She had made another mistake. She shouldn't have let them go. If she had only executed those rats as well, the captain would still be alive. His children would still have a father. Shun could hear fate laughing at her, taunting her. Would she ever be free of this madness? She had to find the god responsible. She had to find them and kill them. As she looked out over the ocean, she once again drifted off to sleep. Shun jolted awake when a crewmate grabbed her shoulder gently. Her first instincts were to reach for a revolver.
Sorry to disturb you, ma'am, but we reached port. Thought you would have liked to know.
Yes, thank you. Shun stood up, making sure all of her weaponry was still in place, and walked up to the front of the boat and looked out towards the street. A crowd had already formed, vying for first glance at the merchandise. Scanning the crowd, she could see 2 people who stood out, wearing black cloaks. The 2 figures looked rather impatient. Scanning the ship and pacing back and forth slightly, one of the figures looked up and locked eyes with Shun. The figure appeared to be a female elf with sunken features, chapped lips, and dark circles under her eyes. The elf turned to their partner, whispering something into their ear, and the two turned and walked away. Shun leapt off the boat, delving into the crowd of people, pushing through the crowd. She could see their cloaks gliding in the distance. As she chased after them, she ran straight into a halfling, knocking him over. "Oh, wow, I didn't see you there. In quite a hurry." The halfling picked himself up, dusting off his clothes. Shun looked at him, seeing the aura of godhood around him. She smelt a strong scent of spice and cinnamon and alcohol from his aura. A god she was not familiar with, but gave her the sensation of parties and alcohol, all things self-indulging. Shun's eyes narrowed and she grabbed the halfling by the shoulder, heading through the crowd for a nearby alley. Hey, let go of me. I'm sorry, I didn't see you." Shun dragged him into the alley and pushed him against the wall. "Oh, well, so we're doing that then. Well, my name's Corcus. What's yours?" You are a god? Are you the one responsible for the trafficking?" Corcus's eyes went wide in shock. "First off, how do you even know that? It's not like I've been a god for a long time. Second, trafficking? Like human trafficking? Nah. I don't involve myself with things like that. That's messed up. Nope, never." Shun released her grip slightly. "You were mortal before." Yeah. I died or something, and this crazy changeling woman, denizen of creation or something, resurrected me and made me a god. I'm like a god of food and drink, or some bullshit like that. I don't know. Just don't kill me, okay? I can see by that crazy look in your eyes that you're pissed about something, but I can give you whatever information you need. I'm assuming it's about the trafficking?" Shun let go, Corcus slumping down, back onto the ground. "Yes, I need to know where the compound is. I know it's here." "Yeah, I know where that thing is, I think. I see them taking a bunch of people there every time ships dock at the port." "And you didn't do anything about it?" "Look, lady. Shun. Look, Shun. I have my own stuff going on. I just got my party back, and now I'm a god, evidently. Infiltrating a slave ring was the last thing on my mind right now." "Let's just go." "All right, I'll lead the way." Corcus started walking up and down the alleys of the city, occasionally glancing back at Shun. "So, you're a drow, right?" "Mm-hmm. 'Cause you look different than a lot of drows I've seen before, but I guess that's because you're a god." "I'm not a god." "What? What are you then?" Uh, how could you tell I was a god?" "I was born to kill gods." "Oh, that's certainly... Yeah, so where are you from?" "Cycerin." Yeah, sure, it's a lovely place. This conversation sure is not awkward at all. Me a god, you a god killer. This is great. Oh, look at the time. Time sure flies by when you're having an awkward conversation with your natural predator. There's the compound. See that big warehouse-looking building? That's it. Bye now. Have a good time." Shun reached out and grabbed his shoulder before he could run away. "If you abuse your powers to hurt others, I will find you and kill you." Corcus shuddered a bit. Yep, got it. Bye now. Nice meeting you, scary drow woman, god killer lady Shun." Corcus grabbed Shun's hand and tried to sneakily pass lifting it off his shoulder as an attempt at a handshake before sprinting away. Shun approached the compound. This was it. This is where the god was. This was the end of her journey. To wipe out human trafficking. She had destroyed the scum of the Silver Moon and the Gilded Eye, and now this was it. She took a deep breath, banging on the door loudly. The door swung open, and a large Goliath stood there.
"What do you want?" "Drow."
"I want to make a purchase." The man laughed with ferocity.
A purchase? The auction is not till tonight. And do you really think they'd let you make a purchase?
As the man stood there laughing, Shun drew a revolver and pressed it against the man's temple. No. She pulled the trigger, and the man fell backwards, hitting the ground with a thud. Shun stepped over the body and into the warehouse, men scrambling around to see what happened.
It's an ambush. Get the merchandise out of here.
Shun saw a man attempting to open a large metal door and quickly shot him.
Holy shit, what do we even do? Just ambush her.
3 men charged at Shun, trying to catch her off guard. She quickly dodged backwards, blasting all 3 of them. Looking around the room, she could only see 1 man left, drinking a potion. The man turned invisible, trying to escape from Shun. She smiled, opening a small pouch and tossing gunpowder into the air. She waited, seeing the powder collide with something, then blasted the man. The pool of blood mixing with the gunpowder on the ground as the spell faded. As Shun reloaded her revolver, a loud and slow clapping echoed throughout the room. A figure of a tall man walking down the staircase leading to an upper room. He had a limp, using a cane to steady himself.
I figured you'd come for me soon, after I heard of what you did with the silver moon and the gilded eye.
I knew you'd come. As the figures slowly moved down the stairs with a hobble, their form changed, becoming shorter and more slender. It became apparent what they really were, a female changeling. As they got closer to Shun, she could not detect any aura of godhood, or the typical smell that followed it. You're a changeling? You were the god responsible for all of this. The changeling finished walking down the stairs and hobbled over to about a meter in front of Shun. Is me being a changeling so surprising to you? No, I am not a god. Why would you ever think that? As for being responsible for this, yes, it is my business. Shun shook her head. No, there has to be a god controlling you. Why would you do this to your own kind? Your own people? The changeling laughed. I am doing this out of my own free will. My people have given me nothing. Why should I care what happens to them? But why? It's a living. I make good money. I'm comfortable. There are no other motives to it. Tears were running down Shun's face. She was being forced to come to terms with the nature of this world. I don't believe it. Let me tell you a story. My name is Francine Hellfield. My father was Elrond Hellfield. He was a great explorer, making trips to other realms quite frequently. It was 32 years ago when my father was in Cycerin. My birth parents were poor changelings and they gave birth to me, a cripple. Imagine their faces when I came into the world. I couldn't do anything for them. I couldn't work and I couldn't make them money. So, at the very first chance they had, they sold me to an outsider. We do what we have to survive. I just do it at a much greater scale. You're the captain's daughter. I suppose you could call me that. He wasn't much of a father. He was a heavy drinker, abusive, and treated my brother a lot better than me. I suppose you must think he was high and mighty. It wasn't until I was old enough to leave that he figured out the error of his ways and changed. You can change too. You don't have to do this. That's what you don't understand.
People rarely change. It's the way of the world. Whatever makes the most money. I can't fight you. You can kill me right here, but if you don't, I will go on doing what I've been doing. If you do kill me, another one will pop up. You can't stop this. You can't control this. There will always be people like me, profiting off of the suffering of others.
Shun shakily took out her revolver, pressing it against Francine's head.
Do it,
The changeling said, smiling wide at Shun.
I. Do it.
Shun pulled the trigger, and Francine fell to the floor as blood pooled up on her face, her expression still that of a smile. Shun fell to her knees, sobbing. There was no god involved in this. This was the true nature of mortals, corrupt of their own volition. What was the point of any of this? She couldn't save the world. Nobody could. They were doomed to hurt themselves, a repeating cycle until the end of time. Shun stood up and went over to the middle door, opening it to a scene of carnage. Several drow and changeling children were on the floor, dead with several knife wounds. 3 older kids standing above the carnage, wielding makeshift daggers. What? It was us or him. This was survival. More tears ran down Shun's face as she just turned around and left. She had enough of this world. She was ready to go home. Perhaps the primordials were right. The mortals were savages.